Yo, Terry, we recording? What do you mean you're in Fiji? What do you mean we blew this joke by saying last week you'd be in Fiji? What do you mean my phone's not even open? Describe the Sharks game in 3 words. Shit, and really shit. Still top of the table, yeah. Hi everyone and welcome to a special edition of Rugby League Outlaws. As you can see, I'm hosting by myself tonight. We are of course brought to you by our great mates at Top Sport. Make sure you like and subscribe where you can, please. Terry will be back next week. He was so disgusted by the Sharks' performance this weekend that I could not get him to board the plane and come back home. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to do a pre-Origin report card for all 17 teams. Now, if you're hoping for alphabetical order, reverse order or whatever, no good. You've got to watch them all because I'm doing them completely random. And I'm going to leave the Sharks to last. So Sharks fans, make sure you jump to the end. Although, I recommend staying because it's all good stuff. Now, we're going to start with the Gold Coast Titans. As you can see by my very expensive not green screen here, I've given them a C. Which, considering they're sitting 15th, you're probably thinking, Dan, you've lost it. Partially true, but this is a team that, look, you can see in the pros, they've re-signed David Fafita for 12 months at least until this time next year. We're talking about another clause they've found and we have to do the dance again. But, I mean, obviously he signed with the Roosters. It was all set to be announced. He pulled the plug. Obviously likes what they're building up on the Gold Coast. So congrats to the Titans for signing their best player. He's fantastic. Look, as you can see right here, they, sit 15th, but they could have 4 more wins just outside the 8. They could sit, a win or 2 outside the 8. They've lost close games. They've had every injury in the world go against them. They've had refereeing decisions that were 50-50s go against them. They've had players leave midway through. They've lost games by 2 points. They've lost tries on the bell. This is a team who are much, much better than 15th. Look, if you had to do power rankings right now, I'd probably got them 10th or 11th. Their ceiling is really high. I think you'll see some better things from the Titans. And look, they've got an next man up mentality that not many other teams can match. Like I said, their injury toll is horrible. We've seen players step up and fit right in. In terms of negatives, horror start. They lost their first 3 games, totally 70 points conceded to 18. Horror injury toll. Every player in there has been injured for at least a week. It's awful. And of course, AJ Brimson, my second favourite player after every Shark. They cannot figure out where to play this guy and they've just given him a 6-year contract extension. Moving on to the back-to-back premiers, the Penrith Panthers, who currently sit in second. Look, it's a straight A. You could say A+, but they lost their first game of the season again, and I just love bringing up that stat to my Penrith mates because you've got to take them wherever you can get them. Look, they're winning without clearing. That's a positive. You lose the best player in the game, you keep winning. Well, what do you got to say? Second of all, they have signed Isaiah Papali'i, who, look, probably having a bit of a down season for the West Tigers, but it's for the West Tigers. That's the part. Every player that comes to Penrith becomes twice the player overnight. I have no problems with the signing. Congratulations to them. They were turned down by David Fafita. Not often you can say that about this Penrith side. But even if they hadn't signed Papali'i, they've probably got 4 blokes playing park football with St Mary's that could come in and play Origin very soon. And look, they got the form player of the competition, Dylan Edwards. People coming in saying, oh, he's a run merchant, he's a this merchant, he's that merchant. He's going to play Origin by the time this drops. He's been selected. This is a player who is leading the Dally M's, either equal with Nico Hines or points ahead of Nico Hines, who himself is playing very well. You just can't deny it anymore. In terms of negatives, I mentioned it. They lost round 1. That's hilarious, but who cares? They did it last year and won the premiership. They lost James Fisher-Harris, who for mine's a top 3 prop in the game. Going way up the M1 to the Dolphins. Having a season from all, well, it's been fantastic. They sit 4th. I'm going to give them an A. Yes, they lost a horror game yesterday to the Warriors, but it happens to the best teams. In terms of positives, I had 5 or 6. I'm trying to keep it to 3 for each team. This was very, very easy. Young Katoa is a rising star of the NRL. They're talking about Nico Hines not being fit. Yeah, you can go back to Keary. You can go, Burton out of position, move Luai to 7. Or you could pick Katoa at 7. I don't recommend it, but it's not that far-fetched. Points galore. This team can score from anywhere. The games they've lost, they've just conceded more than they've scored. Sounds obvious when you say it out loud, but this is a team that could score points, and they're very, very entertaining to watch. And look, that spine is brilliant. The Hammer is arguably my favourite player in the competition. I know I said it was Brimson a few minutes ago, but it's my show. I can say what I want. You got young Katoa, and that Jeremy Marsh-King's the most underrated 9 in the game. Negatives, look, Tom Flegler, huge signing, came down from the Broncos, started the season extremely well, injured, missed 6-7 weeks now. Talk is his season might be over, which is an absolute horror blow considering how well he was playing. But look, if he's fit and firing next year, the signing is still good. And look, they can cop a score. I talked a few minutes ago about how many points they were scoring, how they were putting points on for lols. They also concede. A lot of their games are losing 32-28. We saw the Warriors yesterday. They've scored enough points to beat that team 3 times over. Couldn't hold on when it was late. If they fix their defence, maybe they're playing finals football. Now, slightly, well, wherever, because we don't know where the is, we got the Brisbane Broncos. I'm going to be tough here. I'm going to give them a B. Look, they're sit 6. They could be sitting second, but they've had a couple of losses. You look and think, geez, that's Brisbane-like. In terms of the positives, though, Reece Walsh, I don't want to put too many players as a positive, but this guy is so good. Coming off a career best year last year, well, he's going to do it again. He's going to play Origin. He's a fantastic player. And look, their forward pack stood out, minus the best forward in the game. Payne Haas went down. Pat Carrigan took it personally, stepped up, and arguably became the best forward in the game for the time that he was out. They're going to be very hard to beat once they get their players back, which brings us to my first negative, which is the Reynolds injury. He's getting on. There was talk that he was injury prone when he left South Sydney. They obviously regret that. I think when he's back, if he's fit by finals time, which all reports say he probably will be, then this team will be very hard to beat, but there's always a chance of reoccurrence. I know every single player in the competition has got a recurring injury, blah, 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 but this is a bloke who's on the tail end of his career. I hope for his sake and Brisbane's sake he can come back. And look, they've lost the big games. Roosters twice, Panthers and the Storm have all beaten them. Again, they've got some injury concerns. They haven't had a full strength side out of about 2 games, I think. I'm not worried about Brisbane, but looking at them now, you don't want to lose to those teams when you're talking about grand final victories. Let's go to the mighty Melbourne Storm, who are missing, well, every player you can name. They've been missing for weeks. This team can find a win from anywhere. Look, I'm going to give them an A. I almost gave them a B+, but come on, it's Melbourne. You give them something, they're going to make me regret it. It's A for Craig Bellamy. Big fan of the show. Shout out, Craig. Look, as I said, they can win from anywhere. There's 3 or 4 times you've gone, well, Melbourne are Gornskis, and they've come on to win. Xavier Coates, that try against the Warriors is one of the highlights of the night, not just because I had a bet on with Top Spot for him to score, but you just can never, ever count this team out. And look, in terms of players that you would have named in the preseason as stars, I don't think Katoa would have been one of them. Wishart and Farlago. Huge, especially Farlago, his ceiling is really, really high, but he's come in for Ryan Pappenhausen. Played extremely well to the point where I've seen Melbourne fans say we're going to find a way to get both of them in with Pappenhausen moving. I wouldn't go that far just yet, but what a talent this kid is. Look, in terms of negatives, the injury concerns, Ryan Pappenhausen is the most unfortunate man in rugby league. I hate it, but he seems to be always injured. He gets a great run, and for mine, he could have played Origin. Like, let's not put him out of there. He could have played Origin if he kept playing that well. Injured again, they're talking weeks and weeks. Who's to say he comes back? Cam Munster, obviously a horror injury, grabbing at his groin from out of nowhere. You don't like to see that in anything. But, even with 3 or 4 Origin level injuries, this Melbourne team cannot be counted out. Let's see the Sharks. They should have beaten Cronulla. Let's call a spade a spade. Cronulla went down there with Daniel Atkinson and no halfback. Nico Hines pulled out on the eve of and managed to beat Melbourne in Melbourne. I think it ended a 9 or 12 game, let's say 100 game win streak for laughs here, and to bump the Sharks up. Goal we needed after this weekend. They're games you don't see Melbourne losing. So I got to put it as a negative. But sitting third with that horror injuries thing, it's A. Let's go to the Newcastle Knights. This one it'll split opinion, but I don't really care. I'm going to give them a B-. They sit 7th. If you'd said to me 4 weeks ago, they're getting an F. They started the season horribly. Callum Ponga got injured. They learned how to play football. Don't think that's related, or maybe it is. Which brings me to my first positive. David Armstrong comes in for the great Ponga. All the pressure in the world on this kid, and he's just kicked up to the point where you've got to keep him in the side even when Ponga comes back. Now, I'm not suggesting you move Ponga back to 6 because that's been tried and tested 3 times. Horrible outcome, but Armstrong, super talent. Look, Newcastle got to move heaven and earth to keep this kid there. Whether he can play 6, I don't know. 4-game win streak, largely on the back of David Armstrong. Comes in, Ponga, injured, season over. If you asked anyone, myself included, geez, did I hate those words. Come back and win 4 games, had the bye. Ponga's a week closer to returning. Obviously, he comes back in when the current Dalian medalist is available. You play him. That's pretty good month for the Knights. In terms of negatives, look, Ponga injury again. I don't like harping on injuries, but this is a bloke who missed months and months last year. He's missed months this year before, same again. Superstar fullbacks and getting injured, there's no better combo in rugby league, unfortunately. If he gets fit, they can go deep. Look, they've only scored 200 points in 13 games. Okay, it's not terrible when you break it down, but the better teams are way above them. I think every team in the 8, the Roosters are 100 points ahead. I think Canberra were better, and I think 3 or 4 teams below them had scored more points. They're going to find points, which brings me to number 3. They're going to figure out who their halfback is. I love Tyson Gamble. He's their number 6. Who's their 7? Is it Hastings or Cogger? The answer to that question will go a long way to deciding whether this team can play finals, but for me, it's a B-. I was going to save them for last because I think this is going to be fun, and that's the South Sydney Rabbitohs. They got the dreaded F. They've had a horrible season. Look, let's talk positives before we go negatives because I could talk literally all night. Oh, look, they won their last game. And look, there's not a lot else, let's be honest. This is a team who I tipped to go very, very deep in finals, and I'm going to eat those words for the rest of the season. Yes, there is a horror injury toll, which of course is negative number 1. Every player they've had, Latrell, Campbell Graham, all their forwards, I love this to toll. I picked him to play Origin in the pre-season. He hasn't looked like quite the player. Colin Matangi has played exceptionally well the last 2 weeks. Before that, not much else. The horror year, let's just write this one off for South. Look, Latrell, inconsistent. You can see it there in big, bold writing. We've got to address the elephant in the room. Latrell on his night is one of the best players in the competition, but unfortunately his night is becoming few and far in between. Look, you can't blame him. You can't blame any player for the way Souths are going. It's a combined effort to be that terrible, but we saw Latrell play exceptionally well after coming back after a suspension. The other night against Parramatta, blew him off the park. He was the best player in the park for mine, or number 2 behind Colin Matangi. They're a different side when Latrell plays well. Look, their coach is gone. They've run out of excuses now. Their one excuse, Flick and Demetrio, they used it very early in the competition. Look, they've signed Bennett, which are probably, we'll sneak it in with editing in the positives. The super coach is back. And who would have thought Wayne Bennett figured out the succession plan to Wayne Bennett with Wayne Bennett. Now next we're going to move to our good mates in the green machine. That is the Canberra Raiders. Currently sit 8th. I'm giving them a B. I think they've they've blown my expectations out of the water. I didn't think that halves pairing minus Jack White would do much well at all. But that brings me to my first pro. Ethan Strange and KO Weeks playing years above their experience levels. 2 rookie halves, 2 young halves. Don't really have a halfback there, a natural halfback. They're doing exceptionally well to sit in 8th. Good on them. Look, they got 6 wins, which I probably had them 3 to 4 at this time going into the Origin break. This team knows how to score points, so that's really entertaining to see. I think Canberra have done exceptionally well. Whether they can maintain it is one to see, but it's a B for me. Look, the negatives, they've been blown away by the Sharks and the Roosters, who are 2 teams that, despite this past weekend for one of those teams, have pretty genuine title contentions, thoughts of a title perhaps. They got blown out to, I think, 42-0. Cronulla beat them. The Roosters played them off park this weekend. It's a little bit worrying. And both those games came in Canberra too, where they notoriously have a very good record. Look, Joseph Tarpany has been a lone man up front. Papa Lee's a fantastic player, one of the best props I've ever seen. But he's on the wrong end, or the back end of his career. I shouldn't say wrong end. He's still a fantastic player. But in terms of that middle's looking a little bit shaky, which you don't have to say about Canberra. I think 8th is about where they will hope to end at the end of the year. But if you had said right now they're sitting 8th, probably not believing you. So it's a B for me. And we reach the halfway point, which is Manly, who currently sit 9th. I'm going to give them a C+. I've had a lot of Manly fans in my mentions the last few days on Twitter. Some are saying they're the best team in the game. Others say they're playing like probably halfway in between. Look, in the pros, Luke Brooks, he's shut a lot of people up, myself and Terry especially if he was here. Playing extremely well in this Manly system. Who would have thought leaving the Tigers was the key to playing well, eh? Look, they're doing just enough. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but they're doing just enough. They sit 9th. If they were playing at their top ability, everyone was fit and firing. They're probably a top 5 or 6 team, probably not quite at the elite of the competition, but they're way too good to play to miss finals. And look, they beat Penrith, and they beat the Roosters. Not many teams can say that. Cronulla beat the Roosters, came out and got absolutely cold-walloped by the Panthers. So that's a very good resume as you look at. Look, in the negatives, though, you've got to start with the Tommy Turbo injury. Another player who I love to see play football, but another bloke who just can't stay fit. I'm not going to give him any grief. I'm not going to blame anyone or anything. It's just the way it is. If he stays fit, they can do anything. We saw it a couple of years ago when they finished in the top 4 with PVL ball. They need Turbo fit. And second of all, they keep losing games to teams around them. I've written here the Dolphins, the Raiders and the Dragons. I think Manly are better than all 3 of those sides. They've lost games to them, and by around them, I mean teams from that 6 to 12 spot who need to beat each other to finish in the 8. Look, I'm pretty confident Manly will kick on and finish in the 8. Their halves are too good, their young players are good, and their forwards, Paseka, freak of a player. I would have picked him for Origin just quietly. But look, I don't think they'd be overly happy with 9th. I dare say they'll kick on. C+ at this stage though. We're back at it after a short break. You're back here with Dan. Obviously Terry's missing, but that's a positive if you ask me. Speaking of positive, when you go to the Bulldogs, I'm going to give them a B+. Yes, they sit in 10th, but in the pre-season, I didn't have them in that sort of 10th to 8th, which is where I have them finishing now, which is real good. Look, in the pros though, you got to start with Bronson Xerri. This is a bloke who, did the wrong thing, paid a very hefty price and has come back playing tremendous football. One of the most exciting young centres in the game. The body hasn't taken the hits of other players his year because of that 4-year layoff, which I'm not spinning as a positive. I think, though, the positive comes with the way he's come back, which has been exceptional. 191 points conceded. Are you kidding me? A Bulldogs team that can defend, what is this, the 1980s? I say that in jest, but they've been very, very good defensively. 191 points is better than a lot of the teams at the top of the table. If they can get their attack right, then they're going to be a real threat. It's a huge if, but we shall see. And look, they're 5-0 at home. Any team that wins all their home games is going to make finals. Now, it's a long way from the finish line, of course. This Bulldogs team and a home ground, you look and you're thinking they're beating some good teams, the Roosters included. So, pretty confident the Doggies are going to have enough to make the 8. I don't know how many teams I've said will make the 8 tonight, but they'll be right in the reckoning. In the negatives, though, they're 0-6 away from home. As good as you are at home, if you can't get an away win or two, well, you're going to sit 8th, 9th. You've got to win a couple of those games to push up into those genuine spots, which they can do post-Origin. They're not going to lose the players I thought they were. Addo Carr, of course, Burton will be around the squad but may be released to play, which is a positive for them. Second of all, we all wanted the Bulldogs to start well. The story was good, the momentum was there, and they started 1-3, which has put them a little bit behind the 8 ball. They ran into Cronulla, which isn't an easy game as it's turned out early on in the season. Few early losses, but it did put the pressure on for them to go on a run. Unfortunately, they're in a position now where they can't lose 2 or 3 games in a row. They'll get really dragged down into that battle. So B- for the Doggies. I've been very impressed with what I've seen. Not quite in the top level of competition yet, but building nicely. Now on to everyone's second favourite team, the North Queensland Cowboys, who currently sit 11th. I give them a C-. I think they've hugely under-delivered. I say that in the preseason I had them about 12th to 13th. They're probably where we are, but you look at the games they've played, the wins they've had, and the points they've scored, and you're thinking how they sit in 11th, which brings me to 317 points scored, which is the second best in competition behind the high-flying Roosters. Stars are firing. Valentine Holmes is having a brilliant season. We'll walk into that Origin team. Of course, Reece Robson also made the Origin for New South Wales, albeit. And Jeremiah Nane, who, copped unfairly for mine, a bit of a try merchant reputation last year for catching and falling, or following Chad kicks through. I think he's become a fantastic second rower and is a real star in this team. But obviously, if you're sitting at 11th, the negatives outweigh the positives. I mean, they've conceded 315 points, which is all good when you're scoring 317, but we've seen games where they've been blown off the park early and haven't been anywhere near it. We've seen games where they're blown, say the Dolphins, off the park and ended the game very quickly. So this team, you never know what you're going to get with the Cowboys. We turned up when they played Sharks down at Shark Park a couple of months ago now, and we thought, okay, if they turn up and get into a fight here, this could be a real difficult game. 10 minutes in, you're like, Sharks by how many? That Cowboys team is too good to be one of these teams where you don't know who's going to turn up. They have to find that consistency quickly, or else, well, it's another season without finals, and we know what that means for coaches. Todd Payton literally pulling his hair out. Little brother, it is your time. The St. George Illawarra Dragons, 12th. I'm going to give them a C+. It's a pass mark. They're doing better than expected. I know that sounds like a cop-out. They're sitting 12th, ha. Terry and I had them last at the beginning of the season. And 3 or 4 weeks in, despite a good win to start the season, you're like, not so much. I think this team's overperforming right now. I expect them to come back just a little bit. But for me, they've done really, really well thus far. And it's all been on the back of Zach Lomax. You've got a premiership winning coach in Shane Flanagan who's come in and told a superstar centre that he's not a top 16 centre, I believe was he used, or top 10. It was outrageous to most fans. Put him on the wing, said you're going to be a superstar winger, and this bloke's been picked in Origin at wing. I think he's got to go to his coach and say, look, mate, thank you for resurrecting my career. She was going nowhere and quickly. Unfortunately, the negative, they've lost Zach Lomax. Their best player for the majority of the season. You can throw Ben Hunt and Jaden Stewart. They've probably had 3 really good performers, and Tyrell Sloan too. But Lomax for me has been the superstar, as you can tell by the fact that he's playing Origin on the wing. He's going to Parramatta at the end of the year, which is a huge loss for the Dragons. I think the coach has got to come first, so I don't hate the move. But when you're losing a superstar player, it's hard to make that a positive. 204 points. Just not enough. I think they played 12 games now, 11, 12, 13, doesn't matter. You got to score more points, especially when you concede and as many as the Dragons do. And look, they lost this weekend, 44-12, to the Bulldogs off a bye. They had a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. They saw everyone bash the living hell out of each other. Magic round. They had their feet up. They laughed. They played the Bulldogs. Very winnable game. Got blown off the park on Thursday night in front of like 15,000 fans. It just wasn't good enough for a team that had so long to prepare. I think Flanagan's look at that and say, oh, that ain't good enough. If that's the Dragons we're going to see, that C plus is going to dissipate very, very quickly. They're still in the run for the 8. Geez, that was hard to say. Let's go across the Tasman to our old mates, the Warriors, who sit in 13th despite a good win over the weekend. Going to give them a D. I know it's not going to be too overly popular with their fan base, but let's face it, they haven't lived up to expectations this season. But look, let's start with the positives. They've had an injury chaos that, is unparalleled. Maybe the Bunnies can hold their hand up and say, "Oi, what about me here?" They're winning regardless. The fact that they've got as many wins as they do with the sort of players, Tohu Harris, Sean Johnson, Adam Finlay, who's not injured but unavailable. They managed to win this past weekend over the Dolphins. Those are good signs, because when those players do come back, and obviously you got young Metcalf too, who suffered a horror injury, and I hate to see it. But, it gives opportunities for players to step up, like young Tane Tuapiki, who I thought has had a wow of a season. Started the season at fullback while Nickel Clockstar was unavailable. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck started at centre. He's another that's unavailable, unfortunately. He's played exceptionally well and is a superstar to watch for the future. I dare say he's kept himself in and around that side, at least for the next few weeks till they're at full strength. Brilliant though, definite positive. But the negatives, they've just fallen off from 2023. Didn't think it was possible to go as well as they did, but that squad is very, very good. They've got a fantastic operator in Andrew Webster at coach. Superstar players all over the park. It just hasn't worked out yet. Now, in a positive way, they started okay last year, had an okay, an up over Origin period, and then hit their straps late. So hopefully for Warriors fans, not for players or fans of teams that are already in the 8, because we don't want to see the Warriors come finals time, they go on a similar trajectory. It is very possible. 216 points for the Warriors, not enough. I would expect that, the Cowboys scored 300. I think the Warriors are a better team. That's about where they should be aiming. And look, they're 1-4 away from home. And that one win came in Magic Round where they had a home ground crowd. They've really got to work out, again, how to win in Australia. With every positive comes a negative, and the most negative team for me this year has been the Parramatta Eels. They get a straight F. If I could go lower, I would. They currently sit 14. This is a team that I argue with Terry vehemently to say this is a top 8 team. He goes, all right, I'll give you this one, and they've done nothing but make me look stupid, and I don't need the help. Let's go the positives. They re-signed Blaze Tuolangi. That's about it. He is a superstar kid. He, a couple of weeks ago, came out and said, look, I'm not going to take up my player option. I'm going to look around. The Dragons like, over here, and he said, oi, Para, I'll stay. I think they found their long-term fullback. The King, who is becoming more injury-prone and broken by the year, that's not a negative. This is a guy that would die for that team. It's a positive. He's got to move to the centres. Solves a lot of issues in one. Tuolagi is a superstar fullback, and he's re-signed for another year. I dare say that'll be extended once he gets to number 1 full-time. Look, they got 3 wins. Could be worse. They could be South Sydney. Negatives, 332 points conceded. That middle is all-time. Origin players, RCG, Paulo and Hopgood, who will be picked for Origin by the time this drops, is my guess. They're conceding too many points. Their backline are just not up to NRL standard. I argued a couple of weeks ago on social media that Michael Sevo was the first player picked. That's not saying much for Parramatta at the moment. And look, the blowout losses, when they lose bad. It's not good enough for a team who was expecting to finish in the 8. Brad Arthur's made way. They don't have a coach. They don't know where their future is. I dare say it won't be with Trent Barrett. In another positive, maybe it's a chance to re-go again, to build, to start again. I don't know. I can't find anything positive. It's an F. Sticking with the negatives, the West Tigers, D-. I'm not going to give them an F just yet. Probably should, but I'm not going to. Look, the positives, there's been a culture shift. Benji Marshall is trying to change what has been a losing culture for over a decade now. It's going to come with some decisions that aren't popular, as we saw, by Papali'i saying to the team, I want to look elsewhere. They said, see you later. He signed with the rival and the back-to-back premiers, probably the 4-time premiers, let's be honest, by the time they play next year. They've lost Papali'i to the Panthers. He's a player who hadn't bought in. They're going to move him on. Shane Richardson's in England right now is the talk, talking numerous players, trying to offload them, bring some new players in, get a new culture. I like it. This isn't a team that's going to play final football this year. Probably next. This is a team that needs to build for the future. And I like what I've seen from Benji Marshall, despite the losses, piling up again. Look, Lockie Galvin. This kid would be $1.10 with our great mates at Top Sport to win Rookie of the Year if he hadn't been suspended. I have my own thoughts about that for another day, but this kid is playing lights out football. He and Jerome Luai are going to form one hell of a halves combination next year. The talk is he may move to lock eventually. I'm picking him wherever he wants to be picked, honestly. This guy's a super talent, and he's completely changed the outlook of this team. I know that's funny saying 8 or 10 games in however many years. He's given them someone to be excited about, which when you're in a complete and utter rebuild like the Tigers, that's a positive. And look, Api Coruscant, what more needs to be said? I cannot believe he got overlooked for Origin. Superstar player. In the negatives, though, they can't score. 173 points. This is the Tigers. You expect them to score points. They can't defend. They can't score points. You're going to lose games. I don't know how else to put it. Another year, no finals. It's done. Even if they go on an 8 or 9 game win streak, there is no way they're playing finals football. West Tigers fans, you can check this at the end of the year. Happy to eat my words, but there is no chance the finals drought ends this year. I'm going to go so far as to say next year's looking tough. But with Jerome Luai and Lockie Galvin pulling the strings, who knows how good the future is. But for now, it's a D-. Let's get some positivity happening, and we're going to the Chooks, the Roosters. They currently sit 5th. I'm giving them a B. This team can score points for fun. We saw them lose to the Sharks the other week. Just want to get that on record real quick. 38-30 or whatever it was. We had to outscore the Roosters. The Roosters are absolutely flying right now. They're scoring points for fun. They're going to be a little bit dismantled during Origin, but they've got more than enough talent. Sam Walker is a freak of nature, playing some amazing football. Look, I'm going to put 2 players here. Connor Watson and Angus Crichton. I said I wasn't going to name players as positive. These two have absolutely blown the competition open. I'm going to go so far as to say Connor Watson will be playing Origin, if not for a throat injury he suffered the other week in training or against Sharks, depends who you ask. Angus Crichton was playing New South Wales Cup and on his way to Rugby Union. He is the form second row of the competition right now. First player pick for New South Wales. For mine, absolutely fantastic season. Has a lot to do with that point scoring. Their left edge is lethal. I love it. Look, they lost to the Dogs. That's a negative. No team of the Roosters' quality can lose to the Dogs, especially in the way they did. They came out and they were like 20-0 and a player down within a blink of an eye. That's un-Roosters-like. They do have that in them this year, which is a little unlike the Roosters we've come to know and not really like that much. But for me, the big concern is they've lost games to Penrith, the Sharks and the Storm. They're the 3 teams that will sit 1, 2, 3 for a start. And I think the Roosters are the 4th best team in the competition. I know they sit 5th, but I've got them above the Dolphins. They're going to start beating teams like that because they're going to play them in the finals. Of course, they beat Cronulla last year in the semi and lost to Melbourne in difficult circumstances. Could have played a prelim, and who knows from there. This is a team that I am genuinely worried about as a fan of an opposition team. B for me, could have very easily been an A. Terry, talk to me, Dan. Time to talk some black, white and blue, and I will not be talking about the Panthers game. We're going to stick with the report card format. For full breakdown, make sure you check out the Fins Up podcast, please and thank you. A little bit more positive than I would have expected, but not really. Pretty terrible game, but that's the last word I'm going to say about it, for a little bit at least. Look, let's talk the positives for the Sharks, who sit first, and I'm giving them an A+. If you'd said to me in the preseason that the Sharks would be sitting first as we enter the Origin period, I'm saying what in Jersey Flag? Because there is no chance anyone saw this coming. In terms of positives, the forward pack. Look, last season I was very negative on the forwards at the Sharks. I don't think any of our pack would have made a top quality team. Teague Wilton, who I've been talking up for years, was laughed at, and I think a lot of that has been proven to be that left edge with Matt Moylan and Talakai in and outside him rather. He's become a far better player. Britt Nickera had a very good season last year. He's continued that on. But for me, it's the middles have really lifted. Oregon Gafusi's playing much better than expected. Big Ball Tom is an absolute... I'm dropping the cult hero tag. He's a hero in the Shire. What a man. I love him. You got Huge Tukes has come on and just leaps and bounds. There was very real feelings that he was just going to be a big guy in New South Wales Cup. He's a genuine first grader. Roy Hunt's lifted. Sifa Talakai, well, obviously more on him a little bit later, and Jack Williams was arguably the form bench player of the competition until Spencer Lenu came back and stole that from him late on. I'm happy to put him in the top 3 or 4, maybe with Talakai as number in the middle there somewhere. It's a far different team this year, far different mentality. The bench last year was a real issue. This year it's a strength. Cam McInnes is playing lights out football and deserves his selection at the Blues. There's a chance he might start over Isaiah Yeo, who's consensus at least the second best lock in the game after Pat Carrigan, and I got him number 1. So Cam, fantastic. Big positive for me. Kalero's in. We've been calling for this for 2 years. It had to come. Obviously, you couldn't move Stiff Talakai, was playing so well. Lights out footy in the centre. Played a pick to Origin playing in the centre, so I get it. Kalero, though, has completely changed that left edge. There's no more, geez, we're in a bit of a hand tussle here, a wrestle. Let's go left. You can't do that anymore. Kalero's defence has lived up to expectations times 5. You haven't lost anything in his his returns out of our own end that Talakai was providing, and it's freed up Stiff Talakai to be an absolute killer off the bench. 2 positives, Kalero in, love it personally. And look, there's a next man up mentality at this Sharks team that I haven't seen for years. We've had injuries, Jess Colquhoun went down and I had him on the bench early in the year. Braden Hamlin-Ueli and Toby Rudolph haven't played in weeks. Huge 2, Royce Hunt, Kafusi, next man up. You saw Katoa missed a game. Sam Stone Street came on, scored a try and debut, was flawless, fantastic, huge future. Kalero came in. When he could have came in and got blown off the park against Matt Timoko, returned to New South Wales, marked, return to centre. He can't play football. He's a superstar. Every team in the competition should be looking at him. Sharks, please get that press release out. I want him re-signed long time. Next man up mentality at the Sharks. Haven't seen it for years. And look, I'm going to add a 4th because I've got the right. Cam McInnes' leadership has been second to none in the competition. This is a guy that I'm convinced would die for that jersey, especially with Dale Finucane retiring. He stepped up. He's one of the top 13s in the competition right now, as proven by his Origin selection. A few negatives. I'm going to throw them in here because, well, that's what this segment is about. We've had 2 blowout losses, the Panthers and the Tigers. You can't say much positive about either. Other teams have had more losses, but the way they've lost, not quite as worrying. I'm not going to blow the place up just yet. I'm very, very happy with how things are going, but you cannot tell me in any way, shape or form that either of those losses are a positive. Look, there's still an over-reliance on Nicho Hynes, let's be honest. He's played 2 bad games all year and we lost them both in blowouts. Obviously, you'll say, but what about Melbourne? We didn't have Nicho. I wouldn't want to go into a game against Melbourne without Nicho Hynes again. I think that was a one-time thing. Dan Atkinson's been tremendous, and Trindle, before what happened, was very, very good, to the point where you could probably say they were on level pegging. Unfortunately, the last few weeks we've seen it go straight back to Nicho plays well, Sharks play well. If not, well, not. Let's see, that's got to change. And look, Dale Finucane retiring. No one's happy to see that. Obviously, his position in the team had fallen a little bit with age and the years on his body. Congrats to the guy. I don't want to see a player, especially one of Dale's standing in the game, go out on anything but his own terms. But in terms of what he brought to Cronulla, he oversaw a culture shift. Losing him sucks. Him staying around the club, though, is a huge positive. Cronulla are sitting, first? A game clear until this past weekend. Had a tremendous for and against. It's been a great season to date. As long as you put the last week in the do not ever see that again basket, go the Sharks. Talk to me, Terry. Doesn't work without the big man. Welcome to Top Sport Tips. I don't want to talk about last week, and moving on very quickly. Just to update, I think Terry's lapping me, but I'll come back. Don't worry. Shout out to Tristan at Top Sport, of course. It's going to combine. He's going to match our total, which is getting very high very quickly. Sorry, mate. Don't think you signed up for this. But moving on, short round this week. Not overly exciting, but any rugby league is still better than no rugby league. Game of the round Thursday night is Parramatta Eels. Hosts the Cronulla Sharks, who, well, both teams need to bounce back, let's be honest. Parramatta coming off a pretty horrible loss to the Bunnies. And I don't know what happened with the Sharks this weekend because I wasn't around to see it. Terry's tipped the Sharks. I think I'm going to tip Parramatta because although it didn't work this weekend, jinx, this is a must-win game for Parramatta. If they lose this game, their season's over, if not already. They didn't get the new coach bounce back that most other teams do. Let's hope it doesn't come against Cronulla, who, look, let's be honest, should win, even without Cam McInnes or Nicho Hynes. I'll tip the Eels. Expecting this to be an okay game. The crowd will be lucky to be 6,000. Friday night up at whatever Newcastle Stadium is known as this week. This will be a big crowd as the Newcastle Knights host the Bulldogs. Both teams almost at full strength, obviously. Pong is out and Burton may be the 18th man, 19th man, who knows. but the majority of the players will be there. This probably is the game of the round. It says a lot about the quality of Origin football, but another rant for another night. Terry's tipped the Knights, so of course I've got to pick the Dogs. I think the left-hand side of the Dogs is really quick. I think they'll tear the Bradman bestless. Well, that's the wrong edge, but I think they'll beat up on that edge. Skagos maybe get picked for Origin, who knows, who cares. Jacob Carrazzo is arguably the former winner of the competition, ran for about 500 metres, scored 10 tries this weekend. You fact check me, they're both right. So I'm going to pick the Doggies in an entertaining game. 5:30 out at Penrith Stadium as the Penrith Panthers host the Dragons. Geez, as a Dragons fan, this is the game you want come Origin time because they're missing about 15 players. If the Dragons don't get this win, they never will. They'll be without Zach Lomax. Of course, Terry's picking the Panthers because he's just pretty boring this week. I'm going to pick the Dragons with zero confidence. I think Penrith will win this game. I think they can run their reserve grade team out and beat a Lomax and huntless Dragons team. I regret saying what I did, but it's on camera now and I don't want to re-record. I think the Dragons win in an absolute stinker. The crowd will be massive though, so it'll be fun. This could be the atmosphere of the week. Saturday night, 7:30. This could be game of the round, maybe. You got the Dolphins hosting the Canberra Raiders at KO Stadium, which I'm super happy to hear. With the greatest respects to Suncorp, which is, blah, 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 the best place in the world if you ask people who live in Brisbane. KO Stadium will be absolutely rocking for this game. And I'm going to tip the Dolphins, as has Terry. How boring, yes, I know. Look, let's be honest, they should have beaten the Warriors. They had a team, well, they had them beaten for about 60 or 70 minutes of the 80. Seeded a couple late tries, couldn't run them down. In the halves, you got the battle of the young halves. You got young Katoa versus Ethan Strange. There's two future, Origin candidates. We'll see in a couple of years' time. But I think, look, the Raiders are missing a couple of players. The Dolphins, every time you blink, they lose a player. They'll lose the hammer. And obviously, Tom Flegler would have played Origin if he wasn't already injured. Let's tip the home side. If this was at Suncorp, I'd probably go Canberra, who are coming off a pretty horrible loss. They need to bounce back quick. I think the Dolphins keep it going there. And finally, Sunday afternoon at Allianz Stadium, you got the Sydney Roosters playing the Cowboys. Look, the Roosters heavily depleted. Going to miss a lot of stars there. Still got Sam Walker and Joey Manu and Dom Young. Yeah, they'll probably win this game, let's be honest. I couldn't tell you what Cowboys team's going to show up. If they show up and play their best football, they're missing Val, they're missing Cotter. I don't think it can match anywhere near even what this depleted Roosters side can do. That's why I'm going to go with Terry. We're both going to tip the Roosters. Again, I know how boring, but pretty confident in everyone, hopefully, other than the Eagles. Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks again for watching hopefully what wasn't a too monotonous episode of Rugby League Outlaws, brought to you by our great mates at Top Sport. Look, Terry will be back next week, or maybe not, depending on the feedback. I might flick him and just run it by myself.